Our next speaker, or really speakers as they are a group, are students and their teacher from Our Lady of the Snows Catholic Academy's Sustainability Club. Now these young adults, as I'll call them, because they're acting very much like adults, saw a problem and decided they had to figure out a way to deal with that. So they're going to talk to us about taking personal accountability and understanding for our own carbon footprint and maybe even the footprint of this conference. Leading their group is their teacher, Luke Arvise, from the Rotary Club of Canmore. And interestingly, they created an app that you can actually download to your phone and track your own carbon output and what you can do to take personal responsibility. So let's give a warm welcome to the students and their teacher from Our Lady of Snows Catholic Academy in Canmore.
Hello and welcome all Rotarians. Thank you for your time today to listen to our presentation. We are the Net Zer0 HEROES Sustainability Club, representing Our Lady of the Snow School in Canmore. Our members are myself, Diego, Allison, Avi, Megan, Seth, and B. This club was first formed in the rise of the pandemic, with plans to present at a conference in 2020 cut short by COVID-19. With a new group formed this September, we are finally able to express our ideas and projects with you today. We are here before you today to present our ideas and plans in combating the ever-growing issue of climate change. As important as it is to bring awareness to climate change, it is even more essential to have specific environmental plans in combating this issue. Our project focuses on offsetting the fossil fuels emitted by the transportation to and from events and conferences such as this one. Meeting in person at these conferences are essential in our social lives as humans, and after hundreds of virtual meetings, I'm sure we've all gained a new appreciation for the connection we can make in person. Our mission is to continue fostering these meaningful connections while exploring ways to create future conferences with a net zero carbon impact. We will go through many products and organizations to offset these fossil fuel emissions, including planting trees, preserving the wildlife, and purchasing carbon sequestering products, which remove carbon directly from the atmosphere and trap it permanently, sequestering in these products. I will now pass it on to Allison, who will delve deeper into the issue of climate change.
Why are we doing this? Has anyone here been absolutely boiling in the summer? Or perhaps frigid in the dead of winter? Well, in the past year, we have experienced both extremities. Now, if you turn your attention to the screen here, you'll see our childhood icon, Bill Nye, in a video where he talks about how the world is essentially on fire due to climate change. Now, to provide some context on these subtitles here, Bill Nye is saying that there are many different ways we can try to tackle climate change, and none of them are free, but in reality, nothing in life is free. So to answer the question, why are we doing this? Well, we don't want the world to end up looking like that. However, evidence of the severity of GHG emissions is seen even in our local community. In our hometown of Canmore, we have reached a record-breaking 37.8 degrees Celsius, which was the hottest temperature in Canmore since 1937. We also reached a negative 40-degree wind chill, which resulted in an extreme cold warning. Now, the net current global total emission of 40 million tons of CO2 per year is estimated to increase without a transition towards green energy and carbon capture. And even with a rapid transition towards renewable energy, it would only reduce global temperatures by the well-documented 1.5-degree increase by 2050. There's already been an increase in the frequency of climate disasters affecting global communities, and unfortunately, this is expected to increase until the end of the century. Net zero emissions are definitely helpful, but due to the extensive carbon emissions being produced, negative net zero emissions are needed to prevent the global temperature of exceeding the 1.5-degree rise. And this can be done by actively extracting carbon from the atmosphere. So now that we've addressed the issue of GHG emissions, I will talk about how our club first started to take action on this issue. This right here on the screen, this is the start of our journey. This is how our club first started thinking about the idea of sustainable event planning. So let's set the scene, shall we? In the fall of 2021, a couple members of our club had an incredible opportunity to compete in the International Synthetic Biology Competition iGEM 2021. Now, at the end of their annual competitions, iGEM will host a jamboree in which teams can showcase their final project presentations. Now, let me ask you all an important question. How many tons of CO2 do you think are associated with hosting events like this? Using data from the 2019 Boston Jamboree, our team estimates this value to be around 7,500 tons of CO2. And keep in mind that this value only really covers the distances traveled by the attendees. It does not take into account the event venue used, the food served, accommodations, etc. However, the reality is that in-person events such as business meetings, iGEM jamborees, and this conference, they're inevitable parts of our lives, and it's simply not feasible to ask for everything to go online. This is why it is crucial to find ways to better understand and mitigate the emissions from hosting in-person events. And that's why our team developed CO2 Easy. CO2 Easy is a sustainable event planning software that calculates the GHG emissions associated with traveling to events, as well as the number of trees needed to offset these emissions. The application also includes a list of companies that provide carbon offsetting services, as well as sustainable choices in accommodation and food. Now, developments for this project include pitching it in the 2021 Tech Futures Challenge at Mindfuel, as well as iGEM 2021, for which we received mentorship from Nikhil Sampal from Mobility Quotient Calgary. Currently, we have a prototype that includes a calculator for the distance traveled by attendees. However, in the future, we would definitely like to look towards integrating other calculations such as the event venue, accommodations, etc. As well, we plan for CO2 Easy to be a service application in which we can give autonomy to various companies to use and manage the software for their events as they wish. We do understand that, yes, there are a variety of carbon calculators already out there. So what makes CO2 Easy so special? Well, what we believe makes CO2 Easy stand out is the fact that it's conference specific. It involves a variety of other parameters that are essential to hosting events besides flight emissions, all collected into a singular, easy-to-use software package. Ultimately, CO2 Easy is so important for our club as it's the beginning of our story with sustainable event planning. Now, we do want to make clear that CO2 Easy is not yet ready for public use as it's still in its development stage. We also want to make clear that all the calculations done for this conference today were done isolated from CO2 Easy, as we use Tree Canada for these calculations. However, we are so grateful for this conference as we believe it'll provide a valuable proof of concept for what CO2 Easy started, testing out the process of data flow assessment and calculating offsets. We aren't 100% sure what the future holds for CO2 Easy, but we know one thing for sure, and that's our passion for sustainable event planning. CO2 Easy is our beginning. It's where we got our idea and experience. Well, this conference, this is our future. Thank you very much, and I will now pass it on to Avi to explain how today's project is going to work.
Hello, everyone. Today, I am going to be speaking on our transportation project. Within our club and community, we aim to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and shrink our carbon footprint. By being aware of the impact that we have on Earth's atmosphere, we can try to offset the harm that we have created and aim to prevent it in the future. But to understand how to make a difference, we have to know what offsetting is. Carbon offsetting can be defined as the pragmatic way to respond to climate change and the effects it has had on the environment, or more specifically, the effects it has had on Earth's atmosphere. It encourages sustainable, renewable energy and attempts to cease emission-causing activity. In the 21st century, it is nearly, unfortunately, impossible to stop emissions altogether, between the burning of fossil fuels to heat our homes and exhaust gases from vehicles. But we can try to counterbalance this. We can try to offset. With this knowledge on offsetting and our impact, our club utilized this conference as a chance to take data and measure transportation emissions from guests. When guests registered for the conference, they were asked a series of questions, such as the type of vehicle being used, the return distance in kilometers, and how many registrants would be in each vehicle. In the next phase of our calculations, we had the help of Tree Canada. Tree Canada is a very reliable company, one dedicated to promoting a sustainable lifestyle. As of 2022, they have planted over 84 million trees across Canada. Their carbon calculator helps us approximate the total tons of carbon dioxide being released from transportation to things such as this conference. They are referenced from the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Canada, as well as Natural Resources Canada. And here is a look at the carbon calculator. First, a vehicle such as a full-size gas car is inputted, and then the kilometers traveled, such as 200 kilometers, which came to 0.05 tons of carbon dioxide in total. And because the trees are rounded up, we can't plant half a tree. 1 tree is needed to offset these emissions. With registrants traveling over 26,000 kilometers to reach this conference, nearly 6.6 tons of carbon dioxide is being released, which means 42 trees are needed to offset these emissions. Our club decided to go further than counterbalancing. We wanted to double our offsetting. We accounted for every guest and purchased a large sum of trees, courtesy of Tree Time, which will be given out to you after the conference. We purchased 280 seedlings, 180 one-year-old blue spruce seedlings, and 100 two-year-old blue spruce seedlings. To watch the progress of planted trees, SREG, otherwise known as Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, has developed an app called iRotary. iRotary can be downloaded on a mobile phone to check growth, such as track the progress of our blue spruce. After logging in, enabling location, and taking a picture of the tree, the data can then be enriched by members of Rotary, which will track the growth and global progress, witness impact, and ensure that the trees are being nurtured. Because offsetting isn't really offsetting if you don't follow through with it, and this app is a great way to do so. Next, I will pass it along to Megan, who will be speaking further on how trees are a viable option for offsetting, as well as other alternative action. Thank you.
As CO2 easy displays, the carbon emissions for conferences such as these is immense. Because of this, offsetting and sequestration options are incredibly important to reduce our impact on the growing climate change issue. Here I would like to propose a question. If I were to ask you what the simplest way to offset your CO2 emissions was, what would your response be? I would argue that most people think first and foremost about trees. Trees are certainly a viable offsetting option, but they're not the only ones. As they're the most common, we will begin there. Trees offset and sequester our CO2 emissions by intaking carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight, and converting it to oxygen, glucose, and ATP, the energy used by all cells in all processes. This process is therefore CO2 negative, as it removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and converts it to clean products, which can be used by the plant to further offset our CO2 emissions. Trees are also a viable sequestration option, as the intake of CO2 is stored in the trunk, root system, and even soil, permanently sequestering CO2. As trees are a viable option for offsetting, as Avi mentioned, we will be handing out blue spruce saplings for you to nurture as your own carbon sequesterers. As District 5360 includes a diversity of biomes, the most effective tree for offsetting varies throughout the district. For the sake of our calculations and what you'll be receiving today, we have chosen the blue spruce, the most prevalent species in Canada and an effective carbon sequesterer. As the exact amount of CO2 sequestered per tree is still debated, Current estimates from Tree Canada, through their national greening program, estimates that the average tree, should it live to 100 years old, can sequester between 370 and 460 kilograms of CO2 within its lifetime. Considering conditions such as mortality, stand dynamics, and species variation, the average National Greening Program tree is expected to sequester 0.2 tons of CO2 within its lifetime. That's 20% of the image seen here today. It's also equivalent to the gas used by a compact car to travel 850 kilometers. But how much will this cost? The saplings cost us between $2.39 and $3.49, a relatively inexpensive cost. However, once you have it, where will you plant it? Some may think that trees can be planted anywhere. However, this is not the case. The location of trees must vary depending on the size of the mature tree, depth of soil, ownership of land, and the location of other factors, such as overhead power lines. A more important question, however, is how you price your time. Trees require a constant supply of water, sunlight, and staking to reach 60 feet tall, which will take roughly 30 to 60 years. Ultimately, the question is not whether or not we should be planting trees. It's a no-brainer. The question is, within our lifetime, do we have the capability, the resources, and the time to allow these trees to fully mature to sequester CO2? Although trees cost us only between $2 and $4, it's not a deal if the tree doesn't survive. Now that we have covered trees, I will pass it off to Seth, who will speak to you about alternative offsetting options based in Canada and even right here in Alberta.
Though trees are certainly a very popular offsetting method, the factor of time and care is a major hurdle. But it must be stated that there are an array of other offsetting options available that aren't as popularly known. And these would include donating to renewable energy developments or carbon capturing technologies. For instance, a key carbon technology is DACS, or direct air capture with carbon storage. DACS captures carbon dioxide from ambient air and provides many options for carbon dioxide to be stored, meaning that DACS is a flexible solution that can be situated almost anywhere in the world. Another option is BECCS, or bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. It's another method for carbon sequestration. It involves using organic matter that extracts carbon dioxide from the air as well, but it can be used as a power source through burning. The emissions from the bioenergy are then captured and stored in geological formations. So as you can see, carbon capturing technologies are becoming increasingly more prevalent in order to mitigate the detrimental effects of climate change. Now, so how can all of these alternatives be accessible for people and public use? So upon thorough research, we have found a few companies that provide opportunities to offset their emissions by either directly using DACS through purchasing projects that are needed on a daily basis, or other methods to prevent carbon dioxide from even entering the atmosphere. For example, Cleano2 is a company that uses carbon capture units, which is a chemical process to convert captured carbon dioxide from a heating exhaust into a stable carbonate to be used in things such as soaps and detergents, meaning that they are actively extracting carbon from the atmosphere and transforming it to be used into household products like soap. It's also important to mention that the soap can be bought in person to minimize the act of shipping, as its company is based here in Alberta. In Canmore, we've actually seen these soaps available at our local grocery stores. So OCO is another company that commercializes the utilization of carbon capture, and they offer a variety of carbon technology. They mainly showcase products that use carbon utilization, and it's the process of converting carbon dioxide into products like concrete additives, fuels, alcohols, and plastics. And some examples of the products that they showcase range from soap dishes, t-shirts, to crayons. And this company offsets their carbon footprint of shipping and packaging through the use of carbon offsets. So both of these companies are just other options for carbon sequestration that many people aren't aware of and aren't as obvious as the natural option of trees. These alternative options, by simply purchasing products like soap and t-shirts, readily sequester carbon from the atmosphere, which differs from the 30 to 60 years required for the maturation of trees. Additionally, there are offsetting options that can be donated to rather than purchased, including Yellowstone to Yukon and SRAG. Yellowstone to Yukon is a local forest preservation organization that takes a proactive approach to maintaining the local landscape. They protect our district's wildlife corridors rather than rewilding after the habitat's been destroyed. Yellowstone to Yukon focuses protecting the nature that we already have, and this approach ensures that the trees and shrubs are maintained in order to continue sequestering carbon to decrease the excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. SRAG, a Rotary action group, assists Rotary clubs in planning and implementing service projects that regard sustainability and climate change. And SRAG has a primary focus on long-term environmental sustainability for people all over the world and require donations to continue their efforts towards a sustainable future globally. So as you can see, buying products and donating to efforts that minimize or mitigate carbon dioxide are small ways in bringing about viable, positive change in our day-to-day lives, and to many, are more easily attainable than the planting and caring of an entire tree. And change can be positive within the knowledge of other options. Thank you. I'll now pass it on to B for a summary of all that we've discussed today and our closing statements.
Thank you for taking the time to come out here and listen to our presentation. To recap, we started with the history of our club and our main goal to reduce the effects of climate change. We used Tree Canada to calculate the offset for everyone's transportation to this conference by the method of planting trees. We recommend using Rotary to monitor your seedlings' growth. Tree Time is going to guide you through planting your own trees with instructions given to you today and with more advice on the website. We talked about the many unique offsetting methods that we can donate towards, such as planting trees, investing in renewable energy research and development, and companies like OCO, Clean02, SRAG, and Yellowstone to Yukon, all running out of Canada. And that sums up everything we've covered today. As you exit today, you will be given a blue spruce sapling to plant, and we will be handing out guides on how to properly nurture and grow your sapling. If you don't have a place to plant your sapling, you don't need to take one. If the trees aren't taken by the end of the conference, we will bring them back to our school and have our community plant them, as it helps with our rewilding project. You will also be given a ballot card with 5 of the different offsetting choices we talked about previously. $5 will be donated on your behalf so that you can support an offset of your choice. To recap, your options are as follows. We can buy trees from Tree Canada to support global tree planting. We can purchase soaps from Clean02 and support the manufacturing of CO2 sequestering products. We can purchase local goods from Alberta's Carbon Upcycling Technologies Company, also known as OCO, and support a wide variety of sustainable products. We can donate towards SRAG and support the initiation and delivery of their environmental projects. Finally, we can donate to Yellowstone to Yukon to support the preservation of wildlife corridors and habitats. Although it's good to donate towards the manufacturing of new products, it's also important to donate towards protecting what we already have. $5, 5 choices, and the choice is yours. Ultimately, there's lots of different options for donations, so please consider donating and helping us start the journey to a greener future. The goal of our presentation is to raise awareness on climate change, donate what we can to make a difference, and finally, to exemplify the ease of making conferences net zero. Thank you for your time and support. We have 10 minutes to answer any questions you may have now.
Thank you very much. The mic is there, but Terry will also bring it to you if it's too awkward for you to get to the center aisle. So again, questions, please.
Hi, friends. Megan from Rotary Club of Red Deer Urban Spirits. First of all, I think we all who are here can agree that the youth are the future. And your presentation was absolutely phenomenal and inspiring, so thank you so much. The carbon offsetting program and tree planting, all phenomenal. What are some things that we can do just as part of our everyday journey to help either reduce our carbon footprint or just, make more conscious choices about carbon offsetting?
I think that that's a really important piece, is finding viable options that we can do in our daily life, absolutely. And I think the easiest way we can do that is think about some of our transportation options. I know hopping in your car is an incredibly easy thing to do, but sometimes just to take a moment of pause, especially we're coming into the summer months, think about maybe riding your bike or walking to a venue that's close by. Additionally, you can also purchase some of our products and use those within your daily life. We talked about OCO and Clean O2, and a lot of those are things like soaps that we incorporate into our daily life. And so just finding alternative products such as those is a really important piece.
Hi, my name is William, and perhaps this is a little bit unusual, but I have a confession, which is that I used to live in the woods, which is pretty zero carbon neutral. And one of the things that I figured out when I decided to leave that life and return to society was that our clothes were a problem. So I'm curious if you have done some research into the fashion industry and recycling clothes, thrift stores, that kind of stuff, and what you found. Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Well, we haven't specifically done any research on clothes specifically. The company like OCO uses the carbon utilization, and it's where the carbon is sort of stored in the fibers. But I think also we've had a couple discussions about fast fashion in particular, and sort of the choices we make regarding our clothes, that they are sustainable. And I think our team of last year purchased sweaters from Tree, in which we also offsetted those options. So if you don't know Tree, it donates trees for an extra $10 with your purchase of any of their sweaters. So we're trying every day to make more of an active choice in what we wear, and that I think that starts with what we see in department stores as well, and sort of not giving into that sort of fast fashion lifestyle. So
thank you. Yeah, if you have time to speak about the chemical aspects of, if you know about that in fashion, that would be great. Thank you.
Tell we're doing a little debating up here. I think it's really important because we know that unfortunately a lot of our clothes does go towards the landfills eventually. And so I think an important piece of that is to just kind of divert that a little bit, and maybe we decide to donate to a thrift store or some other companies, secondhand stores that are trying to give our clothes a second life, because I know that those chemicals for sure that are stored within some of the clothing that we wear is incredibly harmful to the environment. And then once again, purchasing clothes that you know are made a little more sustainably, just like we had mentioned in the presentation, there are some of the companies that we've researched that they actually capture carbon dioxide into the fabrics of their clothing. And so that would be a little more sustainable clothing source.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
After being a part of the sustainability club, that's definitely influenced my family and myself to kind of start thinking about our own lifestyle choices and how to be more sustainable. So one thing we've been doing is our family's been going vegetarian or vegan, since that does have a really great effect on the environment. As well, our school actually recently had a composting program put in that our sustainability club did. So my family's also looking into having a composting type of thing in our own family. And even the thing you're talking about before with fast fashion, now whenever whenever my mom and I go outside to go shopping at the mall, we always try to make sure understand the environmental aspect of it and try not to buy too many things that we don't need.
I think in my family, I'm very lucky that any of my interests become my parents' interests. So we've actually invested in an e-bike, which takes us everywhere, and my dad loves it all the time. And I think it's important to note that educationally, my parents have actually been looking out for scholarships for myself and a lot of all my classmates to start applying to. And my father actually found this Boilermaker sort of union scholarship. And their primary question was actually about what can you do in terms of carbon dioxide emissions? And my dad was like, I know you've learned this stuff, so why don't you apply for it? And I was very thankful that he even found that option for me. And I don't mean to toot my own horn. Mr. Arvesay told me to say this, but I ended up winning around the $5,000 scholarship for it. But yeah, it was a great organization that I think donated around $50,000 towards Canadian students and $50,000 to American students to sort of hear what they wanted in their regards to carbon dioxide and sort of the sequestration and sort of wanting to hear the youth voices. So it was very impactful on my family as well for being a part of this, as well as I believe Carl Hosker's Rotary action video. I watched that, loved it, and used it in my essay. So yeah, and I told my parents all about it, and they've been really looking out for other options as well. So.
Wonderful to have you young people here today. You are definitely our future. I, unfortunately, am one of the ones that from many decades past used to walk 3 kilometers to school uphill both ways. So my question to you is, because as I ride my bicycle past the schools today, I see the lineup of SUVs to pick up children. And I'm wondering how you would address that, because I know that you are the young people that can actually solve this and maybe change the way that this is dealt with.
So within our sustainability club, we had a few younger members, and they decided that they had come up with a really great solution for this. They wanted to have a little competition. So their plan was to award points for people that rode their bikes. Say 5 points if you took a bus, 2, and you took a vehicle, 1. And that way we can kind of track the progress of the most sustainable ways in which people are attending our school and trying to find a way to encourage more students to do that. And so they figured that this competition would be a really great way to implement some of those ideas within the student body. And I think within the coming years, that might be something we look into a little more thoroughly in trying to decide, how do we make this a more sustainable option? Maybe we encourage carpooling for a lot of students that live close by. I know some members of our club already do that. And I think even just encouraging people to use the bus, kind of reducing the stigma, I think, in high school about riding the bus. And it's a pretty cool thing. So that might be something that we look into more thoroughly in the future.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Because I have the microphone, I guess, to ask a question, I guess. And it relates to the movement towards electrified vehicles, recognizing that that's to reduce the carbon footprint from fossilized fuels. However, electricity in itself is a fossil fuel. What is your belief around the net impact?
We think that within the switch to electricity, there's obviously some issues, especially with some of our electrical vehicles and the batteries not fully being recyclable yet, but I think that there are some alternative options to obtaining our electricity. Our school, we're looking into the possibilities of solar electricity, and that would most certainly be a cleaner way to obtain that. We have been working with a few companies already within our school. Hopefully that can be one of our legacy projects, to implement a test kit, solar panel test kit on the roof of our school to measure the viability of having solar panels. And we've also looked into the possibility of wind turbines, because we think both of those options are ways in which we can still obtain the electricity that schools obviously require to operate, but in just a more clean, sustainable fashion.
Thank you. Stephen, is this quick? Because
It is quick.
we're done.
I'd just like to start, sorry, Stephen Lay from England. I've got a 3-letter word for you. Wow. I produce all my own electricity from solar panels. My comment. Thank you.
Wow.
All right, well, thank you very much. That was a very impressive display of certainly creative entrepreneurial thinking, and certainly when it comes to making a difference and promoting personal accountability, and certainly responsibility for supporting the environment. I would say with teenagers like you, the future truly does shine brighter. So thank you very, very much. There we go, look at that, look at that. Our first standing O. The shelter box donation for Our Lady of the Snows was sponsored by the Rotary Club of Lethbridge East.